We're going to go over why you're not explosive enough for football, and we're going to start right now. And when we're talking about you not being explosive enough, we're going to give you 100% actionable items for what you can do and how you can work towards becoming more explosive. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Olympic strength coach Dane Miller. I've coached at 10 world championships. I've coached at the Olympics, and I've even helped multiple different football players become Power 5 football players, including the starting running back currently at Penn State, Nick Singleton. Now, when we're looking at specifically how to be more explosive or what explosiveness is for football, we have to initially start to think about it's the first step. Okay, so if we're a lineman, it's that first step about 0.4 seconds before you make contact. If we're a wide receiver, it's that first step to set up the defensive back. If we're a linebacker, it's the first read into that first step that we're going to look at. And that's going to lead to putting ourselves into better positions and putting ourselves into more advantageous positions to then make more reads or to then move opponents around the way that we need to so that we can make the play. So if you are consistently getting blown up on that first step, or you're out of position, or even along the lines of you are slow coming out of cuts, or you can't jump high enough, those are going to be examples of where we see that somebody could be more explosive. Full disclosure in this is that if we're training explosiveness in the game of football, we're going to have athletes that can run faster, again, jump very high, but they're also going to be stronger as well. And that's some of the big factors that we've got to bring into this, is that we have to acknowledge what that looks like on the field, and then we have to quantify that. So as a strength coach, we've got to quantify, okay, what does that mean to be more explosive? What exercises can we do? And how can we figure out a good position or a good place to be? And if we're looking at like the high school level, okay, let's think about all high school football athletes that are watching this right now. What can you guys do, and how can you compare yourselves to then make those improvements in your training to be more explosive? One of the big aspects that I think most strength and conditioning coaches, most football coaches struggle with is finding benchmark exercises that will elicit explosiveness. Okay, so if we're looking at like primary movements that will display explosive characteristics, the first one is going to be someone can execute a broad jump very well, meaning they're in a static position and they could jump horizontally as far as possible, okay, in a stable situation. The next one would be executing a vertical jump, moving your center of mass as high vertically as possible in as short of a time frame as possible. That's going to be a good display of explosiveness. And then finally, doing an exercise like a power clean or a full clean. And a lot of you guys might not want to do it, but it's going to drastically improve your explosiveness. So those would be those three primary benchmarks that we would use. And if we can take those benchmarks and then look at what those numbers are, then we can put ourselves in a contextual setting to then analyze, okay, this is where this athlete who went Power 5 performed the vertical, a broad jump, and a clean, and this is where I am, and to get to that point, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And then I like to look at secondary benchmarks, the benchmark movements that would be the back end of a clean, a broad jump, a vertical jump. Okay, so like the next level down they're gonna really move the needle quite a bit. And these are gonna be exercises like a single leg squat. So we do a single leg squat, we have range of motion, we have a need to a pad, and we can identify 3 to 5 rep maxes. That's gonna be another way that we can see someone being explosive. And if they struggle with just holding their back foot on the pad, then they're not going to be as explosive as they possibly could because they lack some stability. Okay, the next one would be a high bar back squat. Using Nicholas Singleton as an example, when he back squatted 585 for 5, and he's a starting running back that weighs 230 pounds and he can run a 4.3 940, we can see like that big back squat probably plays a role in his speed, but it also plays a role in his 37-inch vertical. Okay, then we can look at that front squat. And actually using Nicholas, if we can get to the point of hitting a specific number in a front squat, we then know that the clean will improve, and then we then know that we have better dynamic trunk control, which will then lead to better positions, better explosive cuts, and things along those lines out on the field. So we're looking at secondary benchmarks are going to be single leg squat, a back squat, a front squat. Okay, primary are going to be a broad jump, a vertical jump, and a clean. So the time continuum on the primary movements is much shorter. So we have to elicit a large amount of force in a shorter time frame, which is essentially impulse. So we're training impulse with the primary movements, and then we're training strength and power with the secondary movements. Now, the big factor there is like, how can we take somebody like a middle schooler and say, hey, we've got, my son's 12 years old, and my son is he wants to become a starting varsity football player. Well, the middle school athlete needs to be looking at the high school numbers, okay, to make progress to the high school numbers. The high school athlete should be looking at like the D3 numbers or the D2 or D1 if they want to go play at the college level. Or a high school athlete, if they're JV, they should be just looking at what it means to be a starting running back and the numbers that would sort of exemplify. So those are some of the big areas that we want to look at. Now, what I would recommend is just as a starting point, if you're an athlete watching this right now, you should be able to broad jump 7.5 feet to 8 feet. Like, we should be able to do that if we're 15, 16, 17 years old and we resistance-based train on a regular basis, 4 days a week, on a consistent basis. That's a big one here with a lot of you high school football players. Consistently show up 3 to 4 days a week doing the right program. You should be broad jumping 8 feet. And that would be across the board. Now, if you're a running back, that might be 8.5 to 9 feet. If you're a wide receiver, it's probably going to be closer to 9 feet. If you're a lineman, it's probably going to be closer to 8 feet. But those movements should be around 8 feet if we're looking at that broad jump. Now, the next one, your vertical jump should be 26 to 28 inches. If you're a high schooler and you're not jumping 28 inches or 26 to 28 inches, then we've got some ground that we need to make up. You're not explosive enough. We need to try and improve that vertical jump to then lead to a higher position, to a higher explosive level. And then when you are more explosive, you can make better cuts, you can make better reads, you can make better plays out on the field. Okay, so we're looking at that broad jump around 8 feet, that vertical jump 26 to 28 inches. When we're thinking about a power clean or a full clean, okay, that's going to be like that first step. And it's also going to be that point of contact. In the game of football, you have an opponent. So whether you're on the line and you're making contact with an opponent, you have to be strong. You have to have absolute strength because you're going into somebody else who probably weighs a similar body weight to you. They're applying force into you. You have to apply more force back into them to try and win that battle. So we need to use a movement like a clean that is fast, it's explosive, and it's heavy. And there's a big difference between moving heavy weight and moving heavyweight fast. If we can move heavyweight fast, guess what? Now you can make contact. And I'm having these thoughts of Jan Johnson, who was a linebacker at Penn State who trained with us here at Garage Strength. He went on and played with the Titans for a little bit. Jan was extremely strong, okay, could clean close to 375 pounds. And if he would make contact with a big tight end or something like somebody along those lines, when he would make that contact, then he could make that play a little bit better because he was stronger and a little bit faster. Okay, let's say I'm a high school lineman and I weigh 240 pounds. I should be cleaning body weight to 1.25 times body weight. So if I weigh 250, okay, I should be cleaning 250 to 290 pounds to really start to express that explosiveness. If I'm a running back that weighs 205, I should probably be cleaning like 225 to 250. If I'm a wide receiver, that number, or a D-back, that might look like I walk around at 165 to 170. I should be cleaning 205 to 225. And when you can hit those benchmarks there now at the clean, then the other numbers start to really rise up. I recommend really focusing on the primary movements here. Now, if we're looking at the single leg squat, if I can clean 275 as an offensive lineman, I should be able to single leg squat my knee to the pad, full range of motion for 3 to 5 reps, 275 pounds. So what an easy thing to do as a coach is to take that clean number and say, okay, our primary movement is a clean. Our secondary movement is going to be a single leg squat. Now that single leg squat that we want to work towards is going to be hitting that max clean for 5 reps and hitting it with only putting our foot down one time if we put our foot down. Okay, so we hit that clean 5 reps. And then over time, we will start to see that single leg squat take off. And when the single leg squat starts to take off, it'll often pull the clean up and it's going to improve your speed as well. Okay, that's the other big factor here is that when we're talking about explosiveness, we're not even bringing up the 40, the shuttle, a 3-cone, like standard benchmark drills that we could be using. We're just talking right now about traditional explosiveness, broad jump, vertical jump, cleans. Okay, so the speed aspect's a whole nother world. But a movement like a single leg squat is going to transfer really well to the speed world as well. That's where we've got to see, that low hanging fruit. Now, if we're looking at our front squat, okay, so again, using the lineman example, they clean 275. They should be able to front squat 275 for 5 to 7 reps. Now, if I'm a wide receiver or a D-back or linebacker, let's say I weigh 190 pounds. Let's say my best clean's 225. I should be front squatting 225 for 5 to 7 reps. I would argue that the biggest error I see in most high school football players today is that they're not front squatting. And front squat is a hard exercise. Football's a hard sport. If you all started front squatting twice a week, you're going to get really strong and really explosive. Your vert's going to go up. Your broad jump's going to get longer. Your clean's going to improve. It's going to transfer. And it's never going to get easier. When you front squat 300 pounds, it's still going to be hard to front squat 225. When you front squat 315 for reps, it's still going to be hard to front squat 275. It's just a really tough exercise. And that's why a lot of you guys avoid it. But it probably transfers the best as a secondary lift. So again, 5 to 7 reps with the weight that you've hit as your best clean. Now the back squat, full range of motion, high bar, full range of motion, high bar back squats. I want to see that to help improve your broad, to help improve your vert, to help improve your clean. And then in turn, when you're making contact as a lineman, if those lifts are getting better, I'm stronger, my first step's better. If I'm a running back, my cuts are going to be smoother. I'm going to get out of the cuts a lot cleaner. If I'm a linebacker, I can meet the pulling guard a little bit easier and then, push them out of the position so I can make the play. If I'm a D end and I have a really good back squat relative to my opponent across from me, I can blow them up even if they weigh more than me because I'm stronger. So back squat, front squat, single leg squats are key for that explosiveness. So in this case, I want to look at that back squat, taking the clean. Okay, so we're taking that clean number and we're saying, okay, if I can clean 275, I should be able to high bar, full range of motion, back squat sets of 10. And this is one thing I'm going to call out a lot of you high school football coaches on, is that you want your linemen to lower their hip level. You want their pad level to get lower, but then you let them do super short range of motion back squats. So then they lack mobility, which means they don't have the flexibility and they don't have the strength in that deep position. Get your athletes comfortable full range so now that they have more mobile ankles, more mobile hips, more mobile back, and they can start to get really strong in that bottom position. So then they can lower their hips and they lower their pad level and they're stronger in that position now. So if we take a step back and we say, okay, we're going to spend 6 months and we're going to max out our clean like the first week out. We're going to do a triple because we don't want to get hurt. So we're going to hit a triple. That's going to help us with a projected clean. Then what we're going to do is we're going to try and hit that for 5 reps on a consistent basis in single leg squat, 5 to 7 reps on the front squat. And then the back squat, we're going to try and hit that 275 pound clean for 10 reps. And then over time, as we hit those numbers, what you'll end up seeing is as your back squat goes up, as your front squat goes up, your clean goes up. When your clean goes up, your broad jump gets longer. You might see athletes start to gain weight and they'll improve their broad jump by 6 inches because they learn how to be springier. They learn how to be more elastic. So all of these numbers are how we've developed our strength training system inside of our strength training app, Peak Strength. We've taken these benchmarks and we've applied them and we've figured out, okay, what level are you at? Are you a beginner? Are you an intermediate? Are you an advanced athlete? Are you trying to go pro? Are you trying to get the NFL, training in a combine setting or a pro day setting? And so when we're looking at these numbers, these benchmarks, they're really a great way for us to use it, like to dangle that carrot in front of the football player. It's a great way for us to see where we're at every 12 to 16 to 18 weeks, okay, when we're testing. And then we can see potential weaknesses in the individual. Some individuals might squat really high and have a bad clean, or they might have a really high clean but a bad squat. And then we can see that relative comparison to their broad and to their vertical. And typically the broad and the vertical will also help us project where they are with their speed, with their locomotion, with their sprinting, with their shuttles, with their cuts, their change of direction. So this is how we've built the entire system inside of Peak Strength. If you guys want to get into the football training around Peak Strength, we're going to expect you to show up 4 days a week. We don't want you to go into Peak Strength and just show up and train twice a week. We want you in there 4 to 5 days a week, focusing on your strength, focusing on your speed, focusing on your explosiveness. We want athletes who are willing to work hard. And when you're willing to work hard, head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. You can download Peak Strength, select that you want to train for football, and then you're going to have a position-specific aspect that you can click on. Because remember, freaks, if you want to become explosive, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.